My guests today are film director Misha Calvert and actress filmmaker Coco Jourdana, and one of the most powerful and emotional short films I have seen this year, Fault. Now, director Misha Calvert, an award-winning filmmaker based in New York, channels the emotional rawness and urgency of this issue of her bold vision of the film. Now, with Fault, Misha is hoping for a new wave of feminism, the primal scream, which we're going to talk about today, and a phase of activism that is ugly and uncomfortable in order to facilitate a broader cultural reckoning around the fight for women's equality. Now, the events are inspired by a true story from Coco Jourdana, a French born actress and filmmaker based also in New York, who also stars in the film. Now, drawing from her own experience of abuse by a close family member, Coco brings profound emotional authenticity to the role of Gigi. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome filmmaker Misha Calvert and actress filmmaker Coco Jourdana and their incredible short film Fault to the show. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having us.
You're very welcome. Well, Coco, I'm going to kind of start off with you. So, the film Fault is based on your personal experience, and why were you initially afraid to make this film?
I think because it's just a very raw personal experience that is still developing in my own life, that is still affecting, myself, my family. So it's not an easy choice to just decide to make an art piece about it because you might ruffle some feathers. It might be hard even for yourself to kind of dig through these emotions. So I was just a little bit, you know, worried and a little bit nervous to kind of dig into all that. But at the end of the day, I realized it actually helped me tremendously, more than I thought it would. So I'm glad that I made the choice to do it.
Well, did you find that the journey of going through not only writing, starring in this film, did it become healing for you?
Well, I think, when something traumatic happens to you, you block a lot of it and you just you choose not to look at it, you choose to just kind of ignore it, to put it aside. So when you make, a piece of art about it, you're forced to really stop yourself, look at what maybe really happened, what happened to you, how it made you feel. And once you start putting things on paper or things, like the movie that we made, you might realize certain things that you actually didn't even realize at the time or that you still not realizing now. It's just really forcing you to kind of just like break the box open and just look at what's there. So it was very therapeutic. It was very healing for me. It helped me move on, concerning a certain amount of things. And yeah, I think it's just a beautiful way of healing yourself.
I completely agree with that. And Misha, what intrigued you about Coco's story, and how did you approach the story and the subject matter to make sure women's voices are heard loud and clear?
That's a great question. We wanted to make sure that the film centered the two women who were the leads in it. And, there were various drafts. I'm the writer, by the way, as well as the director. But there were a couple drafts where the coach had a physical presence on screen, not just as a photo, but as a person. And I think that that's more like my programming of just watching a lot of film and TV where the abuser is still somehow centered, and and we just wanted to do something a bit different, where it's like, no, he's not on screen. Like, screw that guy. We'll talk about him and his effects, but like, this is a movie about the effects on the women, on the survivors, because obviously we're not just talking about female survivors, although that is a special category of people who really aren't believed. But when you start to look at sports and abuses that happen in sports on up to the Olympic level, it is truly ubiquitous. I mean, there are so many cases of this, any gender. And I think that the fact that it's set around tennis is not an accident. It's yes, it's Coco's story, but we wanted to make it also universal, and tennis was just such a good metaphor for that happening.
I'm glad that you didn't bring the third character in, or in this case, it would have actually been the fourth character with the coach in the film. I'm glad you kept him out and only kept him hanging on the wall, so to speak, and only allowing just the voiceover dialogue over the phone. And because I think it made the film that much more powerful, so that way the audience is focused on Steph and focusing on Gigi, because that's what this story is really about. And I think overall that choice again just made this film that much more powerful. Now, Coco, how did you and Misha connect to bring this story to life on film?
Well, Misha and I have been friends for a long time, and I had the story in my mind, and it was something that I really wanted to make. But I'm not a writer, and it was, something that I think because it was so personal, was also really hard for me to sit down and just put on paper. I've tried so many times, and I had the whole, idea, the whole story, and then Misha and I talked about it one day, and she's a wonderful writer and wonderful director, and truly understand women. And we just realized that working together on this project would really be the best thing that could happen. So we sat down and I talked to her about the whole story, and then she started writing. And we it took us a long time to really make something that we were both very proud of, and that we felt was really a testament to women. And yeah, I'm super proud of what we created together.
Well, you play the character Gigi, which is the older sister of Steph, the professional tennis player in the film. And I'm just taking a guess here. Were you looking at your personal experience from the outside in this film?
That's an interesting question. Yeah, I think more than just my experience, it was also my experience with my sister. I think that's what I felt the most looking in. It was really how it affected me and my relationship with my sister, and just kind of studying that and understanding what the relationship is, how it got affected. So yeah, I think it was kind of like a let's see what that did to me, to her, to us, to our family. So yeah, I think it was kind of like an out of body experience sometime.
I
There
was
was
one.
never there was never a moment when she was out of character. I mean, like obviously on lunch break and stuff like that, but she like I didn't have to, as far as like getting there, like there was never a time where I said Coco like drop in. Like she was right there every single moment of action.
Hmm.
Well, it's funny. No, I don't want to use the word funny. This film doesn't warrant that word, so forgive me for that. Because when I was watching the film, and I knew that it was based on Coco's personal story, so when I was watching, I'm thinking, okay, is Steph playing Coco's real life part? And that's the reason why I asked if it felt like, as you said, an outer body experience of watching and watching this story unfold on film. So that was why I asked that question. So Misha, fault shows us a different side of trauma caused by abuse. How did you approach this story so that the message is a bit different than what we have seen in previous short films?
Totally. It's a well-worn cliche that the first time someone makes a film, it's about the sexual trauma they had in their childhood. No offense, Coco, but that's often something really big that people are like, this thing has defined so much of my, emotional life. I want to make a film about it. I was like, okay, let's not fall into the trap of predictability for the film. How do we remain unpredictable here? And in fact, I just had coffee with the head programmer at Tribeca today, and he was like, seen a lot of films about sexual trauma. This one is different. Why? Well, not only because it really centers the sisters and their reaction of how they respond so differently, not only to what happened, but to each other. And the sports element, too, is another layer of uniqueness to it. So I think as she said, we worked on the script. I was developing it for a year and a half. And in those various drafts, I don't know, 12, 13 drafts, I wanted to avoid melodrama. I wanted to avoid being too expository, where we're like, here's all the backstory. And to create a draft where we were really living in the present as much as possible was really hard. And I'm so glad that I was able to like practice as a writer. How do we stay present? Because we don't want to be dwelling in like, you said this happened, he said that. Like, it's about what's happening now and what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah, you nailed it, because this is something where there is a place for backstories. There's a place for detailed backstories, but in this case, we don't technically need to know the detail, because what we do know and all we have to know is coach and professional athlete, and we kind of can put two and two together. So we don't need to know any details, because with Sarah Rich playing Steph, and then Coco, you playing Gigi. Ladies and gentlemen, when you ever if you're going to Tribeca, you better be in the audience to see this film. And I will tell you why. There are scenes in this film, there are acting in this film where words are not spoken. And you see the tension, the hurt, this, memory being buried deep inside, that is like lava wanting to explode out of a volcano. And that alone makes this story extremely powerful.
Mm, thank you.
And so, Cannes Film Festival is now over, but actress Kate Blanchett recently stated at Cannes that she saw that the Me Too movement shut down very quickly. And I'm now seeing short films fanning the flames to make sure women's voices are still heard. From both of you,
Mhm.
what is your opinion of what Kate has said?
Well, I heard that and I just completely agreed. I feel like there was a moment where that's all we heard and all we talked about, and people were wearing the pins, and it was me too, me too, me too, me too, me too. And then it started dying down. It started just kind of disappearing. There was no more women on set, on both sides of the camera, even though we all said, oh, we're going to hire so many women and it's going to be such a change. And it just did not happen. And I think the past shows us that this is an ongoing battle. It's something that we constantly have to make sure is fought. And making movies with women, by women, for women, and for everyone is, I think, the only way that we can truly fight, instead of just words on the red carpet or words in the press or things like that. The only way to move forward and keep fighting is just by keep making art about it.
I agree. What about you, Misha?
This is much bigger, unfortunately, than the Me Too movement. I mean, yes, what she said is correct. What Coco said is correct. What Kate said is correct. And you have to look at, okay, well, why did it move on quickly? Why are the Epstein files unreleased? Why are the people that perpetuated global sex crimes being protected? And really what we're looking at, you zoom out, those same criminals, perpetrators, they're not just abusing women. Look at their business practices. Look at the entire practice of like slave labor. And, you know, there's this culture that we're starting to understand through technology and social media, a culture of rich, powerful people being able to do whatever they want to whomever they want and get away with it. And that's not to diminish what happens to women, but I think if you really want to make lasting change to this system, it's going to be addressing the system as a whole. I have no idea how to do that, because there's a few people in politics who are fighting for this. Like, Massey was just primaried over this, so it's like how I don't know, but I think that I'm pissed off, and I'm not going to be quiet and nice about it. So that's what I can contribute.
Well, you ought to be. You ought to be. And we need strong voices like that. But I want to cover some of the most powerful dialogue in this film. Now, I want to step back because I kept replaying the film because I've seen this film quite a few times, and I kept replaying one of the scenes in my head. And for some people, they'll just like, oh, okay, and kind of move on till the next scene. But it's when Gigi shows up at Steph's house and and she walks, so they go onto the tennis court. And Gigi makes the comment to Steph, you keep dropping your elbow or you keep dropping your arm when you're serving. And of course, the film starts with Steph doing multiple serves, and she's aggravated with each and every single one of those. I went back to rewatch the opening scene and then to watch that part where Gigi makes that comment. And I paused it and I kept thinking, I'm like, okay, this isn't a mechanical issue. This is an emotional issue. And Steph is standing on the tennis court practicing serves, but there's something else on her mind. Did I read that correctly?
Yep. Yes. No. Exactly. And this was. I'm so glad you caught that. I think you're the only person to bring that up in all the interviews that we've been doing. It starts with her serve because the serve is the tell. It tells us that she won the French Open, and then what? Okay, she's on track. Great. Next match, she's one of the last to place at Wimbledon because of her serve. So how do you go? And tennis is one of the only sports where you can be here and then the next match you're here because it's so mental. So yeah, I mean, Coco, I don't know if you want to like speak on Gigi's contribution, but
No, I think, I mean, their relationship, Gigi knows Steph so well, and she knows that it's not, like you mentioned, it's not just the serve. And that's why during the match, Gigi also asked her, what happened? Like, what happened to you? And I, my character really pushes her because that's the only way that she's going to snap and realize what's actually going on. So the question about the arm is not, it's when I say you keep dropping your arm, I know exactly what I'm saying to her. And it's just like, look at what's happening. Like your serve is getting, affected by what's up there.
Yeah, when it comes to sports in which they're individualized, if it's tennis, if it's golf, could be auto racing, it's it's it can be far more mental than physical. And you really in this story, Misha, you bring that very strong element in this, and it's done in a very subtle way. That's the reason why I had to keep going back rewatching the scene. I'm like, that's just not a statement. That's about something else. And then the light bulb goes off. And but then, you know, the dialogue in this film is so brilliant. And especially when Gigi, there's a scene in which they're outside again, outside of the house. They're having that short tennis match, and then they get into it. And Gigi says, recovered from what he did. And Steph goes, but you wanted it. I mean, the first time I watched that scene, it went right through me. I was like, whoa. So I finished watching the film the first time, and then I went back again and again. And I went, wait a minute. When Steph said, but you wanted it, it goes beyond the words because the look on Steph's face right after she said it, I had to pause it. I'd rewind it. I'd play it again. I'd pause it. I'm like, she knew she said something not only hurtful, but seemed to have a look of regret for saying it. But she knew she was living the same nightmare, correct?
Yes. If Coco, I can speak to this. It's so sister, where something that happened in the past takes on a mythic quality. Events from childhood that are shared with a sister or a brother or a sibling, it's like it it creates you. And I think the backstory for this is partially that relationship that the coach and the older sister Gigi had in childhood was actually something that Steph was jealous of. And that is so sibling. I mean, speaking also from experience of like, how could you possibly be jealous of that? And yet that's the human truth of things that are paradoxical like that. You know, knowing that your sister was abused by her coach and somehow like resenting her for that. These are the really complex and like also dark and shameful truths that, you know, I wanted to bring through the performance, like show, yeah, it's screwed up, but this is how we are.
Well, tell me about tell me about filming that scene and how important it is for both men and women to listen to the meaning of those words between the sisters.
Coco, if you want to take it.
I mean, I think that scene and the end scene for me were the two hardest because I think, going back to what we started the interview with, talking about how healing it was for me and therapeutic, is because during those two scenes and with that dialogue, I finally got to say certain things that I've been holding for so long. And that that particular scene, by the buffet and what you're talking about, when she says, but you wanted it, that scene was so hard for me internally because, like you said, she says it to hurt. And she knows it's gonna hurt. She's completely aware of what she's doing. And yet there's that regret. And I think that's such a human thing when, you have a fight with someone that you love, you tend to say the thing that you know is gonna hurt them the most. Um, and it's such an emotion that we all have. And yeah, that dialogue was really, really powerful. And it was such a whew in the heart.
Well, okay, yeah, the thought entered my head because when someone says something very hurtful, they are the ones that they're living it. They're wanting to be free of it. And sometimes, I think every single one of us has probably said something in life that we wish we could take back because sometimes we just go after the juggler. And in a way, Steph did that. But when she did it, part of her words may part of her words were addressed to Gigi, but the other part of those same words was addressing herself. But and Misha, because the way you filmed it, I see the scene in my head because there's the profile shot of Steph. And and ladies and gentlemen, when you finally see this film, if you pay attention just to the scene and see the look, I can see and I can feel the boy, how do you put this in words? You feel the tension, you feel the deep-seated frustration and anger within Steph, but she doesn't know where to channel it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not about my sister. Really, it's about every sister. You know, the initial inspiration was Coco's dynamic with her sister, but it's I over the course of the filming of it and the writing of it, I became estranged with my sister, and it's now as an adult, I was a shit as a kid to her. Um, you know, I guess I was Gigi, and now it's one of my deep, perhaps lifelong regrets that I was not able to cut the shit and just and be own my own stuff and be charitable sooner. I'm there now, but like too late. And the beauty of this film is that Gigi is somehow able to get through in just the right way at just the right moment so that it is not too late for these two women.
Well, yeah, because Gigi never says it, but she shows it in her actions to tell Steph, "Look, I'm here for you." Because you bring in the film where the coach calls Steph and says, "Don't listen to a word that Gigi has to say." So you bring that element in, which then plays a part later in the film. And but then that conversation out there on the tennis court, it continues with Steph saying, "I will lose everything." But then Gigi comes back and she goes, "You already are. Look at you." And the thing was is Gigi didn't mean losing financially. She meant she was losing herself, her dignity, her self-confidence, which she again noticed in her tennis playing.
Hmm. Hmm.
Well, then
Yeah.
Steph blames Gigi for the coach's abuse, but then Gigi is like other girls or women who feel trapped. But then Steph feels trapped too, correct? In the
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. And I mean, this goes back to why survivors sometimes don't come forward. It's a very clear example in a 14-minute film of why would she, like on paper, she's buried it. What's the problem? She has this brand sponsorship. Got a great career. Her abuser is like protecting her now, you know, building her wealth. And Gigi's point is, yeah, but you're rotting on the inside.
Yeah. And I'm going to wait. um, I will say this. Out of over 200 films I watch a year for interviews, there's only about 3 to 5 of those films that I'll always remember, and Fault is one of those. And in many ways, and we'll get into that, but the most powerful scene in the film is where words are not spoken. But it's and wow, I mean, I'm sitting here, I've already got goosebumps just thinking about it. But it was the realization of the truth that is brought forth in the raw primal screams of Steph. The primal scream was the catalyst to freedom, right?
Yeah. Yeah, breaking the sound barrier and breaking the barrier, the chains of the relationship with the
So,
abuser.
Misha, as a director, what did you tell Sarah Rich how this scene is supposed to play out? Did what elements did Sarah use to bring that absolute deep down raw emotion into those scenes? And of course, you know, Coco, you show up because you hear what's going on and you kind of you kind of join in and push that too.
Well, I'll say what I told Sarah, and then Coco, you can say what you did. Um, I think I used the word animal. I think I was like, okay, Steph, and they're like, you get the director like gets in close, and they're like, what is the director going to say? I was like, this is it, this is it, this is every scene has been leading up to this. Everything you have got left is now, and just animal. You fucking channel hell. Sorry if I can't curse on here.
That's okay.
Channel hell. Channel
We don't
hell.
censor here.
Like go full demon on this guy right now. And
Yeah.
then she did.
Yeah.
Well, you had to shoot that scene once, right? Because she went ballistic with a tennis racket.
Yeah. Coco, I
Yeah.
don't remember. What do we do?
Well, I think what I was gonna say is that I don't even know if I was there for Sarah's scream because I think I needed for myself not to be there. Um, or maybe I was. Honestly, this whole scene is very blurry because it was the most animalistic moment of the entire, film shoot. But what I remember Misha telling me, I was very scared of that scene. Because I've never gotten to scream about what happened in my personal. I don't want to get emotional, but yes, I never got to really do that. And so when we did that scene, I think I screamed a couple times. And then Misha came to me and did the director close dialogue. And I think you said something along the line, scream like you've never been able to do it. And the last scream and the one that we kept is the last scream that I did. And it was so, it's not even the loudest I can scream, but it was so, like this guttural, like everything out. And if I can say it, Misha, after we filmed the scene, like I just completely lost it. Um, Misha lost it. It was a lot of emotion there because I think it was for me the first time that I got to do that for myself, but I think also I've never seen this in a film. I've never experienced this in a film. There's a lot of time where women just keep everything right here, and that scream was that moment where everything just like opened up, at least for me. And I'm so glad you felt that way with Sarah's, performance too. And yeah, it was quite a moment, I have to say, and I'm very proud of it.
Well, see, because when when the coach made the first phone call, and he's like, "Is Gigi there?" So he already knew something was up. So he's trying to to create a bigger wedge between the two. Then in the latter scene, when he calls again, not the third time, when he calls and she just is like not going to answer it. It's when she started thinking about what Gigi has said. And then after the primal scream, it was in that moment she realized she wasn't losing anything. She was gaining control of her life. She had power she didn't know she had. She was gaining her self-confidence, and in the end, she knew she had support of family. And how you tied all that together in one most incredible moment. Wow.
You're very kind. Thank you.
I
Yeah,
mean, no, go ahead.
I do think that Steph goes on to have a quieter life. I don't know that she ever wins a major tournament again, but I also don't know that she minds. I think she finds a new life on her terms.
She plays on her terms because, after I watched this film, the Nasser story popped into my head. You know, a huge scandal in Olympic gymnastics. And then I got to thinking, we know what happened to him, but all the others, they lost nothing. They gained, they gained empathy, they gained respect. So when I looked at Steph, I'm like, you know, when she, then when the coach called and she told him what she told him, then I was like, you know what? In the professional realm, sponsors would not leave her because it'd make them look bad. But she would not only keep everything she already had, she would end up gaining, but she would end up gaining a voice. And in my mind, she probably would get her a new coach in which she was the boss and probably made it back to the top.
Hey, maybe it's Gigi. Who knows? Give us money for a feature and we'll find out.
You know what? I was wondering because there are some short films that are the storylines are so good that they need to be expanded, and Fault is one of those
Mm,
short films that I can see it as a feature.
mm. I mean, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
And I think we've always, thought of that because there's so much more to the story and so much that can be developed. And it would be truly a gift to be able to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah, Coco,
even
hurry up. Raise the money.
yeah,
No problem. I got
yeah,
it.
because you already got part of the cast for this one, and and even when I was even when I was thinking about, and well, it's just hearing the dialogue from the coach. And again, I'm so glad that he was not in the film. He doesn't need to be a central figure, but he knew he was guilty. He was threatened by the truth, and he was very narcissistic. And so I think you created his character perfectly. But there was something that was mentioned in the film that I want to ask. Um, you mentioned that the abuse went on for 20 years, or Steph lived within the nightmare for 20 years. I mean, people today don't realize how abuse creates a cage with no lock on the door.
Mm, yep. Yeah, I think no matter what, and no matter what happens to you in abuse, and people feel abuse very different ways, and deal with it very different ways, and I think that was also one of the central part of the movie is how people deal with that. And your metaphor is perfect because no matter what, it's always going to be a part of your life. You can choose to move forward with it. You can choose to. Some people ignore it. Some people never think of it, and some people use it in a way that maybe is not healthy to just kind of like, oh, this is why I'm so effed up. It's because this happened to me. And then some people use it to get better and build themselves up. And so I think finding the key to that cage is really a personal journey on how you do that. And some people never ever found it, and just go on and live their life and die that way. And some people do, and they're able to just use it in a positive way. And I think that's a very personal experience. There's no right or wrong. There's nothing that, you cannot judge somebody for reacting to abuse and trauma, you can help them, you can guide them along the way. And yeah, it's just a very personal thing.
Yeah, this is a situation, this is a topic, and where many women, um, they they never get the catalyst that moves them towards healing. It's like a wound never heals unless you start paying attention to the wound. And this is the type of thing. Trauma is something that many people will, put in a compartment in their brain and lock it away, instead of dealing with it. And I think, in the scene with Steph just letting it all out is really a call to millions of women across the globe to finally speak up.
I love hearing that
Mm.
from a man.
Yeah, me too.
Thank
That's
you.
yeah. I was just gonna say that.
I will say this. I have interviewed both male and female filmmakers, and Hollywood better get their head out of their behind, because I think one of the greatest things that we saw at the Oscars was that a female cinematographer won. But we need to see female directors take over the category. And because the females know how to tell a story and know how to tell certain stories better than a man. And and even in the short film category, oh my gosh, some of the best short films in the world were created by female filmmakers. So to both of you and the whole crew, this is just fault is just brilliance. So I'm going to ask,
You're healing the world right now with your words.
well, I've seen this subject. I've seen this subject more this year. I saw it last year. I saw one film last year that, I mean, it reaches in and squeezes your heart. And but on this film, and I have to ask, how did you cast it? Now I know Coco is one of the lead characters. Where did you find Sarah Rich? Because her performance deserves an award.
Yeah, we looked far and wide. Casting director Brianna Dunley, she was sending us people for like a whole year. After a while, she was probably like, "Oh my god, when are we gonna actually like make an offer?" But yeah, Coco, do you remember the auditions? I kind of blacked out.
Yeah, I do. I think this was like our third round of auditions, and I've watched every single one of them, just because as an actor, it's very interesting to me. And I remember when we saw Sarah's performance, both Misha and I were like, this is really something. And then we had a round of callbacks. And of course, we were looking for someone that also looked like me a little bit because we're sisters. So that was important. And then we had the call back with Sarah and we hung up the phone and we were kind of like, yeah, this is it. That's her. And she's wonderful and she's such a gifted actress and she was so present on set and she really held a lot of space also for the story and for the fact that it was a very obviously personal story for me and she you know asked me questions and just really wanted to be involved in making sure that she was paying respect to what we had worked on and the story that Misha had written. And I really appreciated that. And I felt very safe. And we stayed very close. And she's a wonderful, wonderful human being. And she's so talented.
You know, I mean, very, very few times a year. And I can count less, I can count performances on one hand in short films. Sometimes I wish there was an Oscar category for best actress, best actor, because I have seen performances in short films that make feature film performances look weak. And Becerra's performance, now Coco, you did awesome, but there is, what I look at when it comes to actors, and I've learned this from acting coaches, and I've said this before in other interviews. It's kind of like if you're supposed to cry in a scene, the object is not to cry. You're trying to hold it back, and it becomes real. Steph's performance in the areas of trauma, stress, frustration, anger, all balled up into one. You could see it on her face without her saying a word. That's a performance.
She did great. Although my 75-year-old father preferred Gigi, so yeah.
No, I mean, well, the tennis court scenes between both of them, it is something to watch. And not only was it something to watch and to listen to, I have to say, I loved the camera angles of that scene. The over the shoulder shot over Steph to Gigi and back. So because I'm looking at everything, I was even impressed for the camera shots, the framing, where everybody was placed. Every element of this film told this story with such grace, with brilliance, professionalism, beauty.
Thank you. Wow.
But the
Very
song
kind.
at the end was very appropriate. I'm going to haunt you. Now, was this an
Yeah.
original piece for the film?
No, it's a pop song from Fabian Del Sol, vintage, a couple decades old now, and it just had the spirit, I think, of what we were trying to convey.
Hmm. Yeah,
I love it.
I love
What?
that song.
So, how does it feel to be in an official selection at the Tribeca Film Festival?
I mean, it's a dream come true, truly, not to sound cheesy or anything, but I mean, I think the goal making this film was for people to see it and for people to be affected by it and for people to watch it and feel something. And the way you do that is, by showing the film. And Tribeca is one of the biggest platform, that biggest festival, and to be a part of it is truly such a gift, and I'm so thankful, and I can't wait to be in a room when people watch it. I can't wait to feel what people feel, and I'm super excited, and I think we're all very excited to be there. Yeah, dream come true,
So,
like
so is
truly.
this, so is Fault premiering at Tribeca?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So audiences haven't seen this yet.
Mm-mm.
No, we have not been in a theater when it's had an audience, and I'm excited. I want to know: are they going to shout? Are they going to boo? Are they going to scream? Like, are they going to scream with them? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
We'll find out.
If anybody boos, I'm going to hit them over the head with a tennis racket. Okay. No, no, no. I think, I mean, this film deserves a standing ovation on many
Mm.
levels, on many levels. But when the audience sees this film, and from both of you, what do you hope they will take away from it?
Go ahead, Misha.
I want for people who need to stand up and shout in their lives, metaphorically, to find the courage to stand up to whoever needs to hear the truth, because the truth is at the center of this film. Doesn't matter how you feel. What is the truth? And the truth shall prevail. And
Mm-hmm.
I want for specifically male audiences who maybe have never seen women, like you're saying, Coco, they've never seen women shout and wail like this, like it's a battle cry. They've never
Hmm.
seen women do that in a movie. I want them to see that and to know, like, oh, that to see women in a new way. Like, okay, women don't have to scream when they're being attacked. They can scream in attack,
Hmm.
standing in their truth.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I think for me, it's, one of the things I was thinking about the most while thinking about the movie, thinking about my story, and thinking about making this is that I think it's really important that whenever someone tells you about any trauma or any abuse they might have felt, or anything that makes them feel like they're not living to their full soul, if that means something, like I want people to sit down and listen. And I want people to just take a moment and to say, I hear you and I see you and your experience matters and there is a way out of this. And if somebody watching the movie feels a little hopeless, I hope this can bring them a little bit of hope that there's a way out of this always.
Well, I think the character Gigi will continue to be the catalyst to every audience that sees this film truthfully and honestly. And I believe that there are going to be, I would not be surprised after this film is seen, even in the theater, at any film festival, that women would stand up and primal
Mm.
scream after this is
I
over.
hope so. That
So,
would
I'd be
be
sick.
incredible.
Yeah.
but again, I mean, ladies and gentlemen, the emotionally charged and confrontational short film Fault, written and directed by Misha Calvert and inspired by the personal experience of its lead actress Coco Jourdana, makes its world premiere at the 25th Annual Tribeca Film Festival. Now, set within the high pressure world of elite tennis, the film takes an unflinching look at the complexities of assault and the long lasting and potentially damaging control coaches have over athletes. Fault follows Steph, a world renowned tennis champion preparing for the U.S. Open, whose tightly controlled life begins to unravel when her estranged sister Gigi arrives. And as their strained reunion gradually flies off the rails, Steph is forced to confront her relationship with her coach and choose between protecting the successful life she's built or potentially losing it all by going public about her coach's abuse. At its core, Fault examines how individuals process trauma in radically different ways. Now, through the opposing emotional landscapes of Steph and Gigi, the film explores the unseen experience of assault victims, offering a gut wrenching performance from its two female leads. And what I will say, award winning gut wrenching performances. Now, starring alongside Coco Jourdana is Sarah Rich as Steph, who credits include Purple Hearts on Netflix and hashtag like on Amazon Prime. And Sarah Rich, well, she grounds the film's emotional intensity in a beautifully layered performance, channeling the fierce competition of women's tennis alongside the emotional rigidity that finally cracks open in a cathartic final sequence. Now, there are only a handful of short films that I see each year that will leave a lasting impression. Both the storyline, the brilliant acting from both Sarah and Coco bring the realism that the Me Too movement is still here. But more importantly, the personal battles that many women deal with on a daily basis of that buried trauma. But in a world of the male dominated film industry, female filmmakers are bringing the best stories to the forefront, and the short film Fault is so powerful that this one could easily be a feature film. And in my book, I want to see this film not only get Oscar qualified, let's at least get this film shortlisted. So, for
Let's
all of you
go.
female Academy members out there, you have a short film that you need to champion behind because Fault needs to be sitting at the top. And Misha and Coco, this film reminds me of the story of how the Academy Award winning film Whiplash happened. Started as a short film, became a feature
Hmm.
film, and the rest is history. Fault falls
Hmm.
into that category.
Let's go.
So I want to thank both of you for sharing this, probably one of the most incredible short films that I've seen this year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us, truly.
You're
Yeah.
very, very welcome. And ladies and gentlemen, for those of you attending the Tribeca Film Festival, make sure you're sitting in the block that contains Fault. And as this film gains steam and momentum across the film festival circuit, make sure that you are sitting in the theater when this film is seen because you don't want to miss it for the incredible filmmaking, but you don't want to miss Fault for its incredible true life storytelling that affects millions of lives around the world. So, with that, ladies and gentlemen, you can watch or listen to all of the Bond on Cinema interviews at bondoncinema.com. Check out our Prime show, our YouTube channel. We're also on Spotify, iTunes, and more. And remember, you'll either see me at the movies or from the red carpet.